All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Professor James A. Russell, Associate Professor in the Department of National Security Affairs at NPS. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, with the recent exchange of strikes between Israel and Hezbollah in retaliation to the killing of Fuad Shukr, how do you assess the risk of a wider war in the region?
Well, I think the major development over the weekend, it seems to me, has been that the Iranians have declined to basically start a wider war, at least right now. Israel provoked Iran and attempted to get, I think Israel seeks a wider war with Iran, and their assassination of the Hamas leader was a deliberate attempt, I think, to get Israel, an attempt to get Iran to respond directly to this attack. And I think the weekend, events of the weekend have made clear is that the Iranians have declined to get directly involved, which also speaks, I think, to a broader dynamic of there's a sort of a mutual uneasy deterrence in place in which Hezbollah and Israel are what in military parlance we would say they're firing for effect. In other words, they're preserving the narratives that each of them seeks to perpetuate, that the conflict is going on and that they're responding forcefully. But in fact, I think both sides have recognized that they're not going to escalate further because there can be no broader political effect gained by a Israel-Hezbollah war, which is to say neither side can impose its will on the other militarily.
Right, Professor. Now, you've clearly said that with both Israel and Hezbollah saying that they don't want a war, but they're ready for it. That's what has happened over the weekend. Talk to us more about the claims and the counterclaims coming at this point of time, with Hezbollah leaders saying that it targeted Israeli military bases, but all those claims have been refuted and rejected by Israel. How do you assess the situation right now, and what's the broader strategy, especially with the Hezbollah leader saying that it will assess the damage it caused to Israeli bases before deciding the future course of action?
Well, I think this is an example of what we would characterize as the attempt to sort of seize control of the narrative of conflict, which is to say that each side seeks to perpetuate the storyline, the narrative that they are responding forcefully, and that they're seeking to assess, the levels of damage that they have inflicted upon the adversary. And this is consistent with the interactions between Hezbollah and Israel that have unfolded throughout this war, I think, in which neither side is really ready for an all-out war because both recognize that neither can win. I mean, let's face it, the IDF has not defeated Hamas after 10 months. It's not clear what exactly they think they could accomplish by an invasion of southern Lebanon to go after Hezbollah directly. And on the other side, it's also clear that Hezbollah does not have the means at its disposal to impose its will militarily on the Israelis on the battlefield. And I think there's a general recognition of this on both sides. But be that as it may, both sides have the incentive to sort of create the narrative that they're responding forcefully for different reasons. It seems the Likud, the Israeli Likud narrative, of course, embraces this sort of storyline of perpetual struggle and perpetual war, surrounded by savages. And Hezbollah, for its part, has adopted a similar line of which they see themselves as the sort of armed bastion of resistance to Israeli aggression in the region. But I think the real important development here, or the important actors in the room, are the Iranians and the Americans. and the Iranians have declined to join into this latest round of gunfire exchange because it seems to me, I can't obviously speak for the Iranian leadership, but it's obvious that they have not fallen for this trap that Netanyahu set for them when he assassinated the Hamas leader inside Iran by responding directly with attacks on Israel. So it seems to me that Iran is exercising restraint, as it has for the most part throughout this the 10-month period, despite repeated provocations from the Israelis to get more involved. And the United States, of course, it seems to me, this is the United States and Iran are in agreement, basically, that they do not want to see a wider war. It's the Israelis, of course, and Netanyahu that seeks a wider regional war. And I don't think Hezbollah has an interest in a wider regional war. But then, by contrast, Hamas sees political benefit to the war continuing because, remember, this is a war of the weak against the war of the strong. Hamas cannot win on the battlefield. It can only win in the court of global public opinion. And so the continuation of the war continues to elevate the Palestinian cause around the world, which continues to put political...
Professor Russell, in fact, I was just going to come to this. We have seen that the long-stall talks are also going to resume in Cairo. Hamas has rejected Israel's new proposals that have been put forth. Now, expanding on what you just mentioned, do you think peace can be secured anytime soon?
I don't think so. I wish I could argue differently. But the incentive structure in the bargaining framework between the sides are not aligned, or if just to contradict myself, they are aligned but in a negative way. For Hamas, as I say, the incentive is for the war to continue because that's to their, or they believe to their political benefit, to elevate the struggle of the Palestinian cause to the global level, and for the Israelis, they also seek the continuation of the war because they have been conducting this genocidal war of ethnic cleansing in which they seek to kill as many of the Palestinians as they can and to take over parts of Gaza and start the colonization process as they have in the West Bank. And so you don't have aligned interests. The only aligned interests here are between Iran and the United States. And until these interests become aligned, and in the case of, like, if I'm going to refer to the bargaining framework, the United States refuses to place any significant pressure on Israel to alter its behavior. The war is going to continue, and much to the detriment, of course, of the poor innocent Palestinians who are on the receiving end of this.
Right, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights.
Thank you for having me.